Straight up. Welcome to your Way Happy Bible Study. I'm Lisa Dennis Sparks, and you're watching Christians United Broadcasting Network. CUBN, where we want to see you be encouraged in Jesus' name. Glory to God. Welcome back to your Way Happy Bible Study on CUBN. I'm in a hotel. We've been driving today. We covered almost 400 miles, and we have weather that we're in Zanesville, Ohio, headed west. We've lighted in a hotel for the night. And so, sorry, we've kind of thrown this together. Hi, Sandra. Nice to see you. Hi, Kelly. I'm looking at you guys here. Let me see. No, I'm trying to scroll here. Okay, there's Kelly. And let's see. Hi, Juanita. And Karen. Hello. Hi, Casey. Let's see. Christina. Hi, Christina. Hi, Mom. My mom is in there. Hi, Priscilla. Priscilla lives, she lives in Fiji. Don't you live in Fiji, Priscilla? I was thinking you did. Hi, Shirley. Hi, Shanna. Hey, girl, how you doing? Hi, Pam. Hi, Angela. Hey, I miss you. Mwah. Hi, Carol, Heath, Roger, Billy, Vicky, Tina, Sandra, Pam. Glory to God. I'm so glad all of you could join us for the Bible study. We are going into our Daniel study now. Yay. Love Daniel. Daniel, chapter 7. We're at verse 10. And the show may be shorter tonight, than it usually is, because we'll have to knock off sooner by about 9, or we won't be able to get any dinner before everything closes. We're on Eastern time, so I guess we would wrap up like an hour sooner, and we got started late. So I'm sorry, guys, it won't be a whole 3 hours, but maybe we did one chapter of Proverbs. Maybe we can, get someplace here in Daniel. And then we'll sign off here in about 40 minutes at about 9 o'clock Eastern. And then we'll go get some dinner before everything closes. Okay, in verse 10 of Daniel chapter 7, a fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Now, what are we talking about? We're looking at Daniel's night visions. In verse 2, he spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of heaven strove upon the great sea. Then he talks about 4 beasts in chapter 3 that are all different from each other. The first is like the lion. Remember when Joseph was before Pharaoh, and Pharaoh had dreams that were that were showing the famine that was coming. And Joseph told Pharaoh about the famine, but Pharaoh had 2 dreams. And those 2 dreams showed the same event, just with different analogies. Well, these 4 great beasts are the second dream after the Nebuchadnezzar statues. So they both mean the same thing. as in the statue, you have the head of gold symbolizes Babylon. Well, the lion here in verse 4 of Daniel 7 is also Babylon. Then in, excuse me, and then in verse 5, you have a bear. The arms and chest of silver is Medo-Persia that ruled the same area geographically after Babylon. And so that is symbolized by the bear and by the chest and arms of silver. In verse 6, you have a leopard, and it had 4 wings of a fowl and 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. Now, what this is this is the same as the belly and thighs of brass, which is Alexander the Great and the Grecian kingdom that occupied the same geographical area as Babylon and then Medo-Persia, and then the empire to rise after that in that same exact area of the world was Greece, Alexander the Great. And so Alexander the Great is symbolized by the belly and thighs of brass and also the leopard in verse 6. Then in verse 7, after this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly. Now notice in verse 6, Alexander the Great's kingdom was broken up into 4 pieces, and then the one led by Seleucus became Rome eventually. So that's why it says in verse 6 that it has 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had 4 heads, because when Alexander died, his kingdom was broken into 4 pieces, and his 4 generals were head of those 4 pieces. Now, and so this beast in verse 7 of Daniel 7 is different. It's a 4th beast, dreadful, terrible, strong exceedingly, had great iron teeth. That's Rome. Remember the legs of iron? Rome. Well, we've got great iron teeth. This is also Rome, this dreadful beast. It devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. So it's stamping the residue with the feet of it. See, the feet are iron and miry clay. And in the end times, this kingdom that rises there, they are stamping the residue, which is the believers that remain, with its feet. That is the end time EU, probably, EU superstate, 10 nations that are shortly to rise on the world scene. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. That's the 10 kings from Revelation chapter 17, the 10 kings. Mark your place, and I'll show you where that's at. Revelation chapter 17. Now notice, in verse 12, the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. So these 10 kings that are not kings yet, but will be, are probably hybrids. That's why they are a mixture of iron and miry clay. The miry clay is like fallen angels. And so these are not men that are heading these 10 kings once Satan is cast down. These are probably fallen angels or hybrids. They are miry clay mixed with iron, which would be angels and men mixing. This could be a genetic experimentation, cloning, whatever it is. These 10 kings are not human, entirely human. They could be part human, but they might, it's miry clay mixed with iron. And so you have these animals in this second dream. Remember Pharaoh's dream that he gave to Joseph? He saw the ears of corn, and then he saw the cows. The same answer. He's showing the same event, which is the famine coming for 7 years, but in 2 different dreams. And this is the similar a similar thing. You've got the dream of the statue, and then you've got the dream of these beasts. And it's the same result, which is telling us that in that same geographical area of the world, these empires would rise one by one. First Babylon, then Medo-Persia, then Alexander's Greece, and then Rome, and then later on in the end times, you would have a revived Rome and the New World Order, okay? And that would give them, that would be the 10 kings. So it says in Revelation 12, and the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. Okay, so you got the New World Order there, okay? And so these two are the same dream, like with Joseph's, okay? So now, in verse 8, he says, I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. I beheld till the thrones were cast down. Now that is when Satan is cast down. The powers of the heavens are shaken. And the Ancient of Days did sit. You're looking at the Almighty, not just the Father on the throne, but he's talking about the return of Jesus Christ, who is the Ancient of Days inside a human body, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. Now see, the Father on the throne is invisible, but this Ancient of Days is not invisible, and this is the same exact description that you have in Revelation chapter 1 of the King of Kings. It says right here in Revelation chapter 1 in verse 14, his head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire. His feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. So the Ancient of Days is actually Jesus Christ. It's the Father in a human body. Okay? And I beheld the thrones till the thrones were cast down. Satan cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head was like the pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. So he's here at that point. Now then in verse 10, a fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him. That's a lot. Okay? And 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. What is 10,000 times 10,000? What is 10,000 times 10,000? Is that a billion? Let me see. 10,000 times 10,000. I'm terrible in math. I don't know. What is it? Is that 100,000? 10,000 times, no, it can't be 10,000. Times 10 would be 100,000. 10,000 times 100 would be a million. 10,000 times 1,000 would probably be, what, a billion? Would that be a billion? And 10,000 times 10,000 would be a trillion? Would that be a trillion? I don't know. My math is not real good. But anyway, how trippy is that? Okay, 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were opened. Okay, now this is the Bema judgment seat of Christ. Okay, and then you also have books opened at the Great White Throne Judgment. And it says, this one I believe is the Great White Throne Judgment in verse 11. I beheld then because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake. I beheld even till the beast was slain and his body destroyed, and given to the burning flame. So there's our Antichrist and false prophet being cast into the lake of fire. As in verse 12 of Daniel 7, as concerning the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and time. So they all have their specific time that they rule, and then the next one takes over, and then the next one, and then the next one. In verse 13 of Daniel chapter 7, I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven. Remember, that's what it says in Matthew 24, 29 through 31. And came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. One like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days. So this is an angel coming in the clouds of heaven too, and he comes to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. That would be the king. And there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. So we have, okay, now I can see what this is saying. One like the Son of Man, that is Jesus, came with the clouds of heaven. We know that already from Matthew. And he came to the Ancient of Days. That's the Father, okay? And they brought him near before him. So Jesus was brought before the Father on his throne. In verse 14, and there was given him dominion. So Jesus is the one given dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion. See, that's the king, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. So he's going to rule for 1,000 years here, while man starts over again. In verse 15, I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit, in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. In verse 16, I came near unto one of them that stood by, and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me and made me know the interpretation of the thing. Now watch this, of the things. In verse 17 of Daniel chapter 7, these great beasts which are four kings, which shall arise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. That's the saints, okay? In verse 19, then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, because the fourth beast makes an appearance in 70 AD, but then it makes an appearance at the end also. So it says, then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, that's Rome, remember, and that's also the legs of iron on the statue. And it's also this beast, it says in verse 7 of chapter 7, it says it was a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. And it devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the other beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. So it could be saying stamp the residue, which is the old way of doing things, with replacing it with the New World Order. And so in verse 19, then I would know the truth of the fourth beast. This is Rome at 70 AD, and it is revived Rome, the EU superstate, in the end times, in our generation, which was diverse from all the others, which means different, was different from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron. See, you've got revived Rome, you're looking at an EU superstate with its own military, and his nails of brass. Now, remember the brass kingdom? Alexander the Great. So you've got an Antichrist who is effective like Alexander the Great, which devoured, brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. So if he's devouring this, he breaks things in pieces, and then he stamps those who won't get on board with him and take his mark with his feet, and he murders them. In verse 20, and of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes, and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. This would be our Antichrist, Pope Francis. Okay? In verse 21, I beheld in the same horn made war with the saints. The Catholic Church has killed more true saints of God than anybody else who has ever lived, and murdered people. So I beheld in the same horn, Antichrist, Pope, snake in a dress, made war with the saints and prevailed against them. So he's going to prevail. If they don't take the mark, he's going to have them executed. In verse 22, until the Ancient of Days came, Jesus, God the Father in a human body, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High. That's at the end of the trib. And the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. That's the millennium. In verse 23, thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon the earth. That's Rome, which shall be diverse from all the kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth. Now you're talking about revived Rome in the end times there. And shall tread it down and break it in pieces. So you're going to have 10 nations with 10 kings who have power with the Antichrist for 1 hour. In verse 24, and the 10 horns out of his kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first. That's your Antichrist. And he shall subdue 3 kings. You're going to have 3 of those 3 states or little countries in Europe that are not going to be able to stand on their own as one of the 10. So they would be absorbed by the Vatican. Okay? And the Vatican would bind with them, and they would get just the 1 vote. In verse 25, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, sneaky sucker, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time. In verse 26. Now what this is saying here, look at 25. He shall speak great words against the Most High. This is your Antichrist and your false prophet. And shall wear out the saints of the Most High. You got the Jews who are dying and being beheaded, refusing the mark of the beast during the second half. And think to change times and laws. Remember, he's already trying to change all kinds of stuff. But he may end up changing the times. See, it's the year 2018 because it's been 2018 years since Jesus arrived, okay? Or not until he died, but until he arrived. Well, then he's changed the Sabbath. The Catholic Church has also changed the Sabbath. So it might be that after the evacuation and after the Antichrist is running everything, he may change the clock to 0000 again instead of being 2018 because he is the one who wants to be in control. Okay? He wears out the saints of the Most High. He thinks to change times and laws. He's going to change commandments, messing with the commandments. And he's messing with the Sabbath day. And he may actually reset the clock to where it all starts over again at 0000. Okay? Until they shall be given into his hand. And they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time. You have 1 year is time, 2 years is times, and then you have the dividing of time. So 3.5 years, okay? So that is the second half. That's the Great Tribulation. In verse 26, but the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion, to consume and to destroy it unto the end. So these 10 kings are given power with the beast, Pope Francis, for 1 hour. But it says the 10 kings at some point, it says they shall take away his dominion. They're not going to want the church to be in charge. So the 10 kings they're going to take away the Antichrist's dominion in a form and destroy. It says they shall take away his dominion to consume and to destroy it under the end. So the 10 kings will devour the church. They will burn it with fire and seize its assets at some point during the second half. In verse 27, and the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High. Yea. Whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Ah, isn't that good? During the millennium, everyone is going to serve and obey him. That's great. In verse 28, hitherto is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my cogitations much troubled me, and my countenance changed in me. So he was thinking one way, and then all of a sudden he's like, He probably actually said, even though it doesn't say that. But he kind of says that because he says, hitherto is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my cogitations much troubled me. Because he's like, that's what he's feeling on the inside. And my countenance changed in me. So rather than being curious or rejoicing, he's like, because it's, it's heavy. He said, but I kept the matter in my heart. So he's thinking about it, but he's kind of twisting it around his mind because he doesn't entirely understand these prophecies he's been given. He has no ability to do so. And God did not give him the ability to understand the end time prophecies. In chapter 8 of the book of Daniel, are you ready to go into chapter 8? In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar. Now remember who Belshazzar is? He is Nebuchadnezzar's son. Nebuchadnezzar was the head of gold, the king of Babylon. Belshazzar was his son who took over after him. When Belshazzar died, you had King Darius of the Medes and Persians take over, and you went from the head of gold to the chest and arms of silver. Okay, we're going to take a real quick break, and when we get back, we'll straight up.